our guest is Vartan Marashlyan. You are the executive director of the RepatArmenia Foundation,
Right.
which is a very new organization that was founded, I thought, 2 years ago.
No.
Apparently only about 9-10 months ago.
True.
But before you took on the role of executive director, you were actually the deputy minister of the diaspora. And that's how we had met several years ago. And I had heard that they had actually brought you from Moscow for that job. How is it that you ended up in Moscow? Were you born in Russia or were you born in Armenia?
No, I was born in Armenia. I was born in Yerevan, but when I was 5 years old, my family moved to Moscow. So it was still in Soviet times, in 1980.
Okay. So now we know how old you are?
Yes, and I've spent most of my life, almost 30 years in Moscow. So basically I got education there, I started my career there. I married in Moscow, and my first kid was born in Moscow. My second kid was born already in Armenia, yes. And this is my actually second attempt to come back to Armenia. So my first attempt was when I was 24 years old. I came here for 2.5 years. And it was a great experience. It was a very difficult experience.
What years were those? Just so we put it into
It was in 98, from 98 till 2001. And I must confess, if I wouldn't come that time, maybe I would stay in Moscow now and I would be a completely different person.
What did you study? I mean, what were you doing in Moscow at the time?
I'm an economist, so basically I have a PhD in economics from Moscow State University. Most of my career I spent in the banking sector and real estate development sector, so it's an absolutely different world. I was engaged in diasporan affairs, and frankly speaking, this was something which I was always very devoted to it. It was always very interesting for me. So when I got a proposal to come to the Ministry of Diaspora and move to Armenia, I thought it's a great opportunity to come back and to do something which you really like doing in your life. And in 35 years, actually, I decided to completely change my career, which is risky, of course, but at the same time, I feel that it's really important for me.
You said something that was interesting. You know, being from, I guess what you would consider the classical diaspora. That's what I represent. My grandparents had, were forced to leave their homelands. Sure. Parents were born in the Middle East. I was born in the Middle East, grew up in North America. And when we talk about diaspora, from our point of view, we understand that to be the diaspora. But in reality, we have a huge. You classified diaspora, you classified economic migrants in Russia and in the former republics of the Soviet Union. So when you said that diaspora was very important to you, what do you mean?
It's quite difficult to make a definition what diaspora is today for Armenia. There's a traditional diaspora, and we have kind of a new diaspora, which was formed after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And
but even before, right?
Even before, yes, with the major outflow started in, let's say, 88, 89 and afterwards. So basically we have new diaspora in the United States as well, for example. I think that it will be possible to consider someone as a diasporan if he stays at least 10 years in the country and got integrated, has a citizenship, then he can be considered as a diasporan already.
Obviously for me and for you, as repatriates, if we can consider ourselves to be repatriates, you can. I don't know if I can. My parents were born here. No, I mean, if you look at the sort of the theoretical definition of what repatriation or homeland is. In the United States now, for example, there are Armenian academicians who are discussing this. Is this the real homeland? Because there's the Western Armenia thing. For me, it's a very basic and simple formula. This is the homeland. It has recognized borders. It has institutions. It is recognized by the United Nations and whatever. For me, this is my homeland. But is repatriation today something that the state, the government of Armenia, the Ministry of Diaspora, is it something that is on their agenda, or is it something not quite there yet?
Okay, let me start with the first part, which was about Western Armenia versus Eastern Armenia. There was never a state called Western Armenia. It was part of Armenia. So if we talk about repatriation, we all came from this land from 100 years ago, 500 years ago. The borders were different, but the land was the same. So this is the real country, and the real country, perception of the real country should be also different from something which we knew from our history as Armenia, kingdom, etc. If we talk about the state authorities, and I would say that both in diaspora and here, the attitude about repatriation is not very well developed. So in the state we have people who would say, yes, definitely we need repatriation because of the migration, we need new blood, we need a different type of people to come here, but they are so far a minority. And in the society as well, they are minority. Most of people would say it's impossible to organize it, you see there's an outflow, there are not enough economic conditions, or even some of them would consider a threat in repatriation, in repatriates. People who move to Armenia say basically they are most of all, I mean, they are well educated with a good career path, that they can judge objectively about what's happening in the country, and quite often they are very active in the social life, which is not very, let's say, which means that many of them are in kind of opposition. Yeah, not directly, not politically. They're trying to judge and to be active in making this country better. But this is not very convenient for some type of people who work in the government or in the society.
When you decided to move here, was your wife also born in Armenia? Then,
yes.
So she had also lived for a number of years in Russia?
She was born in Armenia. When she was 12 years old, her family moved to Moscow.
Okay, so she, her formative years were spent in Moscow, and I'm assuming she had her education there.
Sure.
Did she want to come back?
Yes. Well, when we found each other, I mean, this was one of our kind of key conditions, not conditions, but actually we were quite similar in many things, and this was one of the most important things for me. If a person would be able or would be ready to consider moving back to Armenia, and if this is a value for her, and it was a value for her.
You could have stayed in Moscow. I'm sure you had a fantastic career ahead of you. I could have stayed in Canada. Make a lot more money than I do here, and have a more comfortable life. But that wasn't what was important for me. So that's why it's always so important, especially when families are considering moving, that both the husband and the wife and the children share those same values. Otherwise it becomes a catastrophe sometimes, and people can't make it. But just to go back, because with me it's always like that. We go off on different tangents okay. Here. There's a huge Armenian community in Russia. Is there a tendency, are you seeing the tendency of people wanting to come back to Armenia?
Well, so far I wouldn't say that it's a trend, because we are talking about small numbers. Actually, I would say that our organization is more keen on supporting quality repatriation. So basically we're talking about people who were integrated in the country where they live in, and they were successful, and they would like to create this success here in Armenia, understanding all the difficulties, but also importance of their mission in Armenia. For me personally, it's important, and for many repatriates who moved to Armenia, and we have a kind of a network of approximately 500 integrated and successful repatriates who live in Armenia today, who are kind of on a supply side, helping newcomers. So all of them, when you talk to them, actually the reasons why we are here, including maybe yours, are almost the same. It's several things. It's not a sacrifice. It's definitely not a sacrifice. But for me, for example, several reasons why I considered moving to Armenia. First of all, I want to live on my own land. And of course, it's easier to use an infrastructure and something which was developed not by you in that country, but it's much more challenging, at the same time interesting, to develop your own. Because you always can be as a tenant, like my grandfather, great-grandfather, they're all in different places. And it's a great loss, because we create a lot of things in different countries, then our community is getting assimilated, then finally we get something like Poland or Hungary or Romania or Singapore or India, where we have a lot of heritage which we have left.
Tangible heritage.
tangible heritage, and nobody takes care of this. Or even worse, if you develop a heritage and something valuable for your future enemy. Sorry to say so, but we have an example with Baku and a couple of other towns, which Armenians actually were very much involved in constructing, developing, etc. So for me, moving to Armenia is several things. First of all, is the quality of life and the essence of life. It might be a little bit more provincial, it might be a little bit different, but I have the most important thing here, which I don't have in Moscow. It's time.
With your family?
In general terms, time with your family, at work, as a social activist, it doesn't matter. You have time to live. You're not a part of a consumptionist world in that sense as it is in Moscow, for example. So you earn a lot of money, then you get a mortgage, you buy another flat, then another car, and then suddenly you realize that your kid is not Armenian by his identity, but his behavior is different. And you can't influence on him. You can't just tell him some theoretical stories or stories about your past or the genocide or whatever it is. Yeah, of course, it doesn't work. I mean, he needs to see concrete examples. Basically, you have time here, which is very important. You have time to spend on the development of your kids, which is also very important. You have to organize, for example, if you want to meet with your friends, you need to prepare this in advance, like 2 weeks' time notice.
Whereas here at 10 o'clock,
here,
saying, let's go down and have a coffee.
Exactly, it's just 15 minutes. You call someone, you meet near the Republic Square or somewhere in the center. If you're getting tired of Yerevan, you can easily take a car and go to Sagmosavank, any other place. 30 minutes, completely different century, different atmosphere with your friends, then come back, go to a jazz club, for example. It's impossible to do that. It's also important, like the climate, food, people. Yeah. People is kind of a controversial thing for repatriates, because for one side, people do care about you, but they are too much curious and they're actually trying to get more information about you than you would like to share with them.
You know, shouldn't we know each other's business?
True,
yeah,
true.
That for us, especially, I don't have an experience in Russia, but in North America, you really don't get involved in another person's business. And here, it's not only that they're getting involved, they're staring at you, they want to know how much you paid for your car, you know, where did you get your hair colored, and the most intimate details sometimes. So that's kind of, for us...
True, that's true. It's approximately similar with Moscow, because Moscow is a huge city.
But, you know, I really value and appreciate the fact that you have in your head, in your mind, a very clearly defined definition of what repatriation means for you and how you would like to see that realized. So, hence we come to your foundation, to the foundation, which is the RepatArmenia Foundation. And I remember when you were still in the conceptual phases of it, we met briefly and you talked to me about it. And, you know, my thing was, repatriation should be a state-sponsored policy, but more and more, as I'm getting older and smarter, I'm realizing that there are foundations, organizations, civil society initiatives, both Armenian, local, and diasporan, who can, not the Kickstarter only, but actually be able to realize this program. Now, I want you to very briefly, if you could, explain to us the setup, what it is you're trying to do, and I'm sure that you're facing a lot of challenges now with the Syrian Armenians.
Okay, I mean, when I moved to Armenia in 2010, I was working in the Ministry of Diaspora, but simultaneously with a bunch of my friends and colleagues. Half of them are repatriates, by the way. 12 people who founded the organization, half of us are repatriates, half of us are Moscow Armenians.
Moscow Armenians.
Moscow Armenians.
You're not calling them repatriates.
They are not repatriates because they live in Moscow and they come from time to time to Armenia, but we are very active in different initiatives, including IPE School, including a couple of other things. So basically there's a core group which was thinking about this. So first of all, we were thinking about creation of a website, and that's it. So we thought that it would be good to have a website which would provide some practical tips for people who would like to move to Armenia. But then we realized that, you know, I mean, we need a professional organization to work with every single repatriate who would like to move, starting from psychological aspects and ending up with needs assessment and assistance. And we came up with the idea that, I mean, within the state, it's impossible to organize it so far. Maybe in future, the state would take some of the functions which we are doing, because definitely some of the functions should be done by the state. But at the moment, the state is not ready. So we can either sit like this for another 100 years, if history allows us to sit for 100 years. That's a big question, because from my point of view and point of view of my friends, we have 20, 30 years time till the next, let's say, checkpoint. If we are ready, if we are strong enough, then let's say we will survive and we will continue developing as a country. If not, we might be in a very big danger. In order to avoid that danger, we need to work today. Even we were supposed to start working before. But the good thing about our foundation is that it was established from kind of its initiative, social initiative, I would say. It's not developed by one donor, by one benefactor, by a rich guy who would like to contribute to that process. It's developed from beneath. And another important thing that it's not only like 4 people who work at the foundation so far, and it's just pretty small at the moment.
We have a great network.
Yeah, but we have a network, a supportive network, both here, and we are now developing a network in diaspora. And also what's important, I mean, if I have approximately 100, 200 friends who are looking at me from Moscow and at my repatriation experience. So many of them are a little bit skeptical. Let's say they think, okay, when he will be coming back. And the same here, you come here, your relatives start saying to you, are you crazy? What you're doing here? I mean, you definitely should go back. Or it will be too late, something like this. Or taxi drivers, whatever. So they're looking at me as an exception. But now I have a possibility to say to them, listen, through our website, through personal stories, success stories, and also through introducing real difficulties, because we would like people to have realistic expectations about Armenia and to judge based on realistic expectations. But now I can say to them, listen, I have 100 people who came here from US, 50 from Canada, I don't know, 20 from Australia, 10 from France, 20 from UK, and that's a kind of a shock for them, because they would never think that somebody would be eager voluntarily to move to Armenia, let's say from Canada or from Australia.
So I follow obviously the work of your organization, Repat Foundation Armenia, and through your Facebook page and your website, and because you're a really good networker too. I mean, you're always in touch, and you're having gatherings of repats, and I haven't come to any yet, but I promise I will.
Yeah, I hope so, because
at one point. But people who are living abroad or who are planning to come are already asking you for advice, saying, well, I have a container, my wife doesn't have her citizenship or her Karansun yet, how do I do it? And then I see all of these people chiming in, and I wish there was a Repat Armenia when we moved, because we had to figure it all out on our own. What has the reaction been? Have you done sort of an assessment to see those people who have come to you for services, how they feel about it?
If we talk about the figures, a little bit about the figures, like 9 months of activities, brand new organization with 380 people who applied for assistance. 80% of them were already physically in Armenia. So these were mostly either Syrian Armenians or former volunteers of different organizations which decided to stay in Armenia. Yeah. 20% applied from diaspora, mostly Russia, USA, then by 10%, then Lebanon and Iran. These are kind of the major countries which people are applying from. Mm-hmm. So we have applicants now from New Zealand, from UK. Several people are moving from UK this summer. I mean, we managed to find a job for 90 people out of 270 which applied for employment assistance, which is not bad at all, taking into consideration that most of them were Syrian Armenians. So they came here absolutely unprepared. And nevertheless, we managed to employ quite a lot of people. We assisted in set up a business and now business promotion for 15 businessmen, mostly Syrian Armenians. We do have a good network, not only of people, but also effective organizations like accountancy company, consultancy, legal company. And they are ready to provide basic information for free. which is very good. I mean, we send immediately the people either to our network, if this is something related to your, I mean, like living practical tips on schools, kindergarten, broker, etc. Yeah, we have a Facebook group. Yeah. So you immediately will be added to that Facebook group, and I will, or my colleagues will tag people who went through the same process.
Because you tag me periodically.
Yeah, we tag people because we know, for example, if somebody is looking for a school for a kid who speaks only Russian, I have repatriates who moved from Israel, Russia, and USA who are Russian-speaking Armenians. They immediately will share their experience, which is great, and people really appreciate this. We have a lot of emails which we get where people are very happy with the services. It's not services, like with the approach, with people's reaction, with the readiness to help. But this is something that many of people really miss, and this is something which is very important for them for making their decision. We also organize several professional trainings, for example, how to write a CV and go to interview in Armenia, because going to interview in Armenia is a completely different experience. Yeah. For many of them it's a shock, so you need to have them prepared. How to promote your business in social networks. This is especially efficient for Syrian Armenians who started their small businesses here. Many of them started, but they don't know how to get their first clients, and that's important. We do have different types of gatherings, like meet and greet, where we have 3 categories of people meeting at one place. It's those who are here for a while, who can actually be valuable for newcomers, and potential repatriates who are in town. Because when a person comes to Armenia, I'm saying that it's kind of a far relatives and taxi drivers. Armenia is different from our Armenia. Because if you get into that model, you will definitely, let's say, think when you're going back to your country. If you get into our model, you'll be thinking, how can I contribute to my country? Or even if I'm not ready to move, how I can be engaged with Armenia? And if a person is not ready to move based on his career, let's say stage or whatever, we would say, listen, from our point of view, you are not ready to move. Your decision, you need to make your decision. But I would suggest you to go through a pre-repatriation program. For example, Birthright Armenia as a volunteering opportunity, or you can study in Armenia at the AUA, American University. I would also introduce like Tumo Center, IB School, and many other new, very interesting, important projects, so that people would be able to develop their plan for the next 5-10 years and be ready to move here more prepared.
I really wish that people would take advantage, and not even those who are seriously considering repatriating, but just to go to your website, to your Facebook page, to see the kind of activities that you're promoting. And it's about making smart, informed decisions. It's about viewing Armenia as a real country, to see that it is a country that's developing, and it's a post-Soviet space. We have a slew of difficulties, but I know from my personal experience, and I can tell from your own personal experience, that the quality of our lives, not as Armenians, putting that aside,
yes,
as human beings. I know that we became a family after moving to Armenia, because the mortgage, the 2 cars, the business, the entrapment of that consumerism no longer exists for us. So finally we've begun to breathe again, and we've become a solid, unit as a family. Where do you want to see RepatArmenia Foundation going?
Well, first of all, I would like to mention that RepatArmenia Foundation is not like an NGO developed for 1, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, it definitely should work for at least 20, 30 years. We have a huge work to do, and we are looking for partners in different aspects. I think that in future, we need to bring a critical mass of people to this country. This is the most important problem our nation has. We have a lot of diasporan Armenians who, and I was one of them for a certain period of time, who are, let's say, wake up as an Armenian on 23rd of April and go to sleep on 25th of April. This might sound a little bit rude, but that's the truth. We need 365 days working, living Armenians in Armenia. We need to develop alternative success stories in Armenia, not only 1, 2, like Ralph Iligan or others, but people should see that we have 50 Ralph Iligans, 100 Maria Titisyans, 100 Vartan Marashlyans. I don't know, we have a lot of people here, but this is not enough. We need, let's say, 50,000 skillful repatriates to this country to change this country. And it's easy because the country is not that big. I mean, we have a lot of problems. We lost our state 7 centuries ago. Now we're back somehow to feudal times, let's say so. But this is something we need to go through. You can't just close your eyes and say, okay, I want another type of Armenia.
Yeah.
And definitely, if you don't have a strong Armenia,
another type of Armenia,
yeah,
you have to work for it.
Exactly, exactly.
Hand it to you on a silver
If you want, if you don't like Armenia, if you are not ready to dedicate your time, resources, efforts to this Armenia, to this country, then you'll be 99% assimilated in second, third, fourth, fifth generation. So forget about your Armenian future. The only place where you can secure Armenian future is Armenia. Or through making this country stronger, you will secure somehow, let's say by 20%, living in diaspora, Armenian future of your kids, because they should be proud of this country. Not on the maps, not Armenia from sea to sea, and no real Armenia with de facto borders of 42,000 square kilometers we have. It's not a small country. It's like Netherlands, it's like Switzerland. So basically we can have 6 million people living here. If we have a right political, social and economic model, we can create a strong, viable state here, and we don't have another choice. We either do this or we lose everything and we become a nation like Assyrians.
Vartan Can, I can't tell you how pleased I am that we did this interview, because we share the same values and we share the same vision. I really wish that a lot of people sitting in the diaspora watch this interview and see the passion and the commitment and the dedication. That it's become your life's work, and it's obvious because it's not a 9-to-5 job for you. I know.
No, it's not.
It's a 24-hour job, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and I wish you a lot of success. And I promise to come to the next meet and greet. Repatriation.
And repatriates should also understand this correctly. We are now in a model of developing, let's say, Masnikan's type of repatriation, which was in the beginning of 20th century, in 1920 to 25. This city, which you see today, was kind of a Persian, very small village, a Persian-style village at that period of time. And Tamanyan, Saryan, and many other came to absolutely nothing, no infrastructure. Now you have a pretty good city with a good developed infrastructure. But what you see today, a lot of things has been developed by these people. And nobody realized that these were repatriates. But at the same time, we really are keen on making repatriates to understand they are not a separate caste. They are not a separate, let's say, nation or a quality part of our nation. As much as you can bring to this country, as much you can learn from this country. And also repatriation is a transition status. Hopefully you should become Hayastansi. We all should become Hayastansi. It's a matter of 1, 2, 3 years. That's why we spend a lot of efforts on integrating people, getting them connected with people who went through that path. But only for the reason for them to get better and quicker involved in entire society, to be a part of that society.
You don't have to be a hero to serve your country. You don't have to be a martyr. You don't have to, give up so much to come to Armenia, because Armenia can give us so much, and we know that how much it has given us. So thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to sit down with us. And as I said, hopefully, I don't know, maybe in 5 years' time we can say that we were able to bring 5,000 Armenians and have those realistic goals for ourselves and do the right kind of work to encourage, because it's so important for the viability, sustainability, I would even say sovereignty of our country. It's very important right now. So I commend you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you.